On this week's FPL Happy Hour.
Mate, just to give you some breaking news, Ed Woodward has resigned from Manchester United.
Has he really?
Yeah.
Has he really?
Yeah. Hello and welcome to the 16th episode of our podcast FPL Happy Hour with me, Sham, otherwise known as FPL2 Guys 1 Cup on Twitter.
And myself, Rob, otherwise known as FPL Panda.
Rob, it's all been kicking off.
Shit
Gone mad over the last 48 hours and shit has hit the fan, as you were about to say.
Yeah, shit has hit the fan well and truly. I think, we're obviously, it's something that we've got to talk about, but we're going to try and keep the start of this podcast to FPL, I think, just to maybe have something cheerful to say, talk about.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how your week's going so far, but yeah, mine's a bit indifferent.
Up and down.
Yeah.
So tonight, slightly different pod, for two reasons. Firstly, because it's kind of halfway through a game week, so we're recording at 7:15 on Monday night, so before the Chelsea and Brighton game, and because of this European Super League news that's come out. So we thought what we'd do is we'd talk a little bit about FPL, how our week's gone. Lacazette got injured on the weekend, and I know a lot of people in wildcards did get Lacazette in, so we're going to look at a couple of options for him. And then we thought we'd leave the rest of the FPL talk to our live stream on Thursday. So we'll stream about 10:30 on Thursday night, and we'll go in a lot more depth about FPL. And then the rest of the pod, we'll talk about the European Super League, the pros, the cons, the facts, and then our own thoughts on it as a United fan that Rob is, and as a West Ham fan that I am. So yeah, that is the agenda for today's pod. So Rob, shall we kick off with how you did last week?
Or week so far.
Week so far, sorry, yeah.
So obviously Leno, didn't play. Matt Ryan has been performing like a beast in training, to quote Mikel Arteta. So out of the blue, he starts in front of Leno, which I don't know if that's likely to be permanent or whether it's just giving Leno a rest. But it's a little flag to keep an eye on, I think, because I definitely was hoping that Leno would be starting every game for Arsenal, especially with this run of fixtures. So, yeah, something to keep an eye on. Luke Shaw, 2 points. I was expecting a clean sheet, but yeah, we kind of have to just forget about it, move on. Romain says clean sheet, couple of bonus points as well, so happy with that with his 8 points. Rudiger starts this evening for Chelsea against Brighton, or should we say West London Blue against Brighton. So hopefully he can come out with something. Then Jota, disappointing last night. He seemed to be shooting like almost every time he got the ball, he was creating something. Like he was making something happen, and he did assist the assist for Mane's goal. Like he played the ball out to Trent. So he's very lively. I don't think it's like anything to be concerned about. At his price, you're not expecting a return every week from him. But yeah, I think last night potentially he could have hauled, but he just didn't. He seemed to be taking a lot of shots and hitting Rose Ed with most of them. Bruno, just a 2-pointer. This is something that I am keeping an eye on now. We spoke a bit about Paul Pogba last week, and he does seem to be the main focal point of the team now at United, and
which isn't good for Bruno.
it's not good for Bruno. I think the returns will come; they're still there, but they're not as reliant on him as they were whilst Pogba was injured. And because I think Paul Pogba's just been great, and yeah, we'll probably talk a bit later on about like possible moves for this week, and yeah, Pogba could be someone to bring in this week ahead of the United v Leeds fixture. Mo Salah benched 1 point. You can't do anything about it. He's owned by like pretty much half of the rest of the players of the in FPL. So yeah, you shrug your shoulders and you carry on. Son 2 points, disappointing, but so like the whole Spurs performance was disappointing against Everton. It was 2 Everton mistakes that Harry Kane was clinical with to get his returns. So, but I think if Kane is out, and with the developments at Spurs, with Ryan Mason today being announced as the head coach till the end of the season, it'll be interesting to see how he takes that team forward. And I can see him, yeah, playing Son up top, Dele Alli behind it. I think Son could haul against Southampton on Wednesday evening, because the shackles are kind of going to be off them, aren't they? And we saw what happened at United a couple of years ago when Mourinho got sacked. Next game in, Solskjaer came in, took the shackles off, and they smashed Cardiff 5-0. And I'm not saying that Spurs are going to beat Southampton 5-0, but they could potentially score some goals. Like, I still think Southampton might end up scoring, but Spurs could win 3-2, 4-1, something like that. Just it'd be a really open, exciting game. I'm looking forward to watching that game. It'll be a good game. Lingard 7 points, standard for him. Now, yeah, happy with that. What's the news on his injury at the moment?
Apparently, it's just nothing official yet, but it looked like it was just a strain.
Cool.
Just a strain. Well, cramp. Sorry.
Yeah. So if that's the case, then we'd expect him back for the weekend, or maybe benched at the weekend. And I mean, it's a big, it's
for the weekend.
Huge game, isn't it, for you against Chelsea?
Yeah.
In the battle for those Champions League places, then
that don't exist.
That
or might not exist.
God knows. Then yeah, Harry Kane. Yeah, happy with that return from him. Although bizarrely, at my rank at 103k or whatever it was, I dropped 15,000 spaces.
Which is just so ridiculous, like in itself. Like, you want your captain not to score. Like, that is fucking stupid. I'm not going to lie, that is ridiculous.
I know that. I mean, if this Super League news wasn't out, we'd probably end up talking about effective ownership, wouldn't we? And it's kind of everyone's completely forgotten about the problems that they had with this. Kane took like effective ownership of 210%, which basically meant if you didn't triple captain him, you're not making anything unless you were over like 300k. But then at some point, like if he played against Southampton as well, you'd hit the wall with him, and then once you've hit that wall, you'll just bounce off it, and then you're suddenly losing rank on him until you then start getting the positive returns. It's crazy. But yeah, it's I mean, maybe something to discuss over summer. Like, do we think the chips that are there in place, are they the right chips for the game? Because obviously, if the triple captainship wasn't there, it would have been okay.
Yeah,
Like
you're not losing rank.
you're not losing rank. Your gains in rank would be minuscule,
Minimal.
but you'd still have
There'd
that
still be
great.
gains.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So who knows? Maybe we can talk about that when we somehow have some time over the summer. If the Euros get cancelled, then we'll have
Lots of time.
we'll have all the time to talk about possible new chips. And then finally, Iheanacho hasn't played it, so hopefully he comes and gets some returns. How are you doing at the moment?
So I'm sitting currently on 47 points. Was supposed to have Mendy starting today, but he's not, and Kepa is. However, I do have Alonso starting, which is good news. So it's Alonso versus Rudiger. I benched Rudiger. Disappointed because obviously I wanted to go for the double Chelsea defence, but you know, out of the 3 Chelsea players, only one is starting, which is disappointing. Because obviously I've got Forster now coming in for Mendy. Rudiger's not going to make it on unless Vardy or Iheanacho don't play, which is unlikely. I started Holding instead. One thing that I just think I got completely right in the end was the Phillips versus TAA.
Hmm.
We discussed it a few times on like during that week of the wild card. A lot of people in the community said, TA, is he worth the extra 3 million versus Phillips? Phillips being 4 million and TA being like 7.5 or 7.2, I think he was, something like that. And over the last couple of game weeks, whilst Liverpool haven't been keeping clean sheets, TAA has been going in, getting the return. So game week 31, when we did the wild card, he got 11 points. Game week 32, he got 8 points. The week before, he got 12. The week before that, he got 9. I know we did the wild card in 31, so it didn't benefit from 28 and 30, but he's got 11 and 8, whereas Phillips has got, I don't know, what, 1 and 2 or 2 and 2. So that, I got 6 points over Phillips this week. I got last week 9 points over him, or 10 points over him. So I think that decision was the right decision for me. I don't, and couple that with the fact that I don't have Bruno, because essentially the main difference between my team and your team is I've got Vardy and you've got Bruno. That's the main difference. Vardy hasn't performed, and neither is Bruno. So at the moment, I would say level playing field on that. But yeah, I think that was a really good decision that I made, was to put TA in. And then obviously I've got Alonso starting. Salah came on for 20 minutes, which is disappointing. Jota is what played, but obviously only got me a few points. Lingard and Son, hopefully Son delivers, and then Kane, Vardy, Iheanacho up top. And then obviously we've got Iheanacho and Vardy to come. Rudiger first sub. So we shall see what happens. I think I've got 2 free transfers. So something that we will go into detail with on the stream on Thursday is what's happening with Rafinha's injury. What's kind of the latest? Have you heard anything?
Not yet. I think it's just where the news has just been, you kind of forgotten about everything else.
Yeah.
And it's like last night watching the Liverpool v Leeds game. You're kind of watching it, but you weren't, in a way.
Yeah.
It was a weird one, and I'd completely forgotten Rafinha wasn't playing. I was kind of just zoned out from it. But I think if he's sort of 80 to 90% fit, he comes back in. Like we saw it with Bamford, didn't we? Like
We'll have to see what happens though, right?
he was like he was 80 to 90% fit. Bielsa brought him in, said, "Look, do your job, and then I'll bring you off after 70." Like,
Mhm.
and that's the, I think that's what he'd do with Rafinha, because he's just as important. Like, he's the most creative player by a long, long way.
Yeah.
And I think last night, if they had Rafinha there, they would have beat Liverpool.
I think so. I
Like,
think they would have.
just having that final ball, like the accuracy and the quality, just having that, yeah, they would have beaten Liverpool, and they would have beaten them comfortably as well, because yeah, the
Their
way they
XG was like
attacked him.
2.5
Um, I've
versus Liverpool's 1.5, I believe.
Well, it depends where you look. So I look at, I get the
I was going by
XG
Sky.
from StatsBomb. So they
Right. Okay.
they process the XG. It normally takes them like 10 to 15
That's a big
hours.
difference. So Sky was 2.5 to Leeds and 1.5 to Liverpool.
So yeah,
And you got
Skies will be worked out live.
okay.
Whilst this is from FB Ref, which they get their XG from StatsBomb, who they do it live and then they rerun it to get accuracy. So yeah, you'll notice that on some sites that the XG will be at one point, like straight after the game or for the few hours after the game, and then like by a few hours, like by the next day, it might have been adjusted or changed, depending on the model and the formulas that they use to calculate it. But yeah, I like StatsBomb because the different variables they use a lot more different variables than some of the other sites to gain the XG. So there's an argument to say it's more accurate, but who knows? You'd think if it's more accurate, then it would be closer to the actual score.
Indeed.
Um,
Right.
but yeah,
Okay. All right. So that is our game week so far. Obviously, we said earlier Lacazette got injured for Arsenal on the weekend, and we thought we'd talk a little bit about some options. So, what do you think in terms of options for Lacazette replacement, Rob?
at the moment, I think if you've got a bit of extra money, then Vardy is the obvious. If you've got 2 free transfers, then it would make sense. Like, even if you're missing a little bit of money, to get Vardy in. He's got the home fixture to Palace. Then he's got Southampton. Then he's got Newcastle. It's 3 great fixtures for Leicester there. So I think he's the standout option as a straight swap. I mean, what do you think? Like, as a straight swap, like, is there any other standout options you think right now?
Cavani.
Cavani, yeah, yeah.
I think Cavani's a great option.
The fixture against Leeds for United, I think, is a great fixture to target. We saw at the start of the season. Well, it wasn't even at the start of the season. When was it? End of November, beginning of December. They played each other, and the game could have been 7-7. It was that open. It was just United were clinical, and if United can break Leeds quickly, and you get the likes of Rashford, Pogba, taking it past people, because that's the important thing about Leeds. You need players that can beat their man, because if they beat their man, then Leeds' like man marking just goes out the window.
Yeah.
And we noticed it last night. Liverpool's goal came from who was it? It was whoever had the ball sort of on the left side of the pitch. Was it? Oh, it was Jota. He beats his man. He turns, and because he's done that, all of the defenders have had to like move across one, and it's left Alexander Arnold with like the the keys of Ellen Road all to himself. And yeah, we saw it time and time again when United played Leeds earlier this season, because they've got those players that can just beat the man. So yeah, I think high scoring again, but Leeds will put the pressure on United. So I don't think, like, I'll probably bench. Well, I might bench Luke Shaw this week because he could easily get a couple of assists to make up for the fact that it'll be no clean sheet. I think that's probably one of my benching headaches this week is Luke Shaw. So yeah, Cavani, definitely an option.
There aren't any others. Mainly for me, you've got Cavani and Vardy. Slim pickings elsewhere, isn't it? Really.
I mean,
I'm not sure where else you would go.
like in that price range, who else is there? Like,
Again, you've got Vidra, but he was benched at the weekend.
Ings, but he's blanked. And
Yeah,
would you go for a Southampton asset? I've seen a few people toy with the idea of Aubameyang,
Gambit.
like taking. So if you've got 2 free transfers, like Lacazette out to an Ian Atro, or Chris Wood has been banded about because it looks like he's the one that's
I
guaranteed his
prefer
spot.
I prefer Greenwood
Or yeah, Greenwood.
midfield. In midfield,
But
yeah.
Aubameyang's going to be starting in that number 9 role, which he hasn't
But
done
it
all
depends
season.
if it depends if he's got back from it. He's okay with his malaria, right?
Yeah, yeah. So you wouldn't make that move now. You'd sit and wait on it until Friday evening deadline time. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'd lean more towards Cavani or Vardy, depending on how much money you got in the bank. Because I think Cavani's a bit less than Lacazette.
Well, hopefully, come Thursday, things will be a lot more clearer. So for our live stream, we'll be able to kind of talk more about that in detail, and we'll know. Right, go on then. Let's do it. Let's go on this European Super League rant. Rob, it's affected you a lot more than it's affected me. So I'll let you go first. I guess what's your thoughts? What do you want to say about it?
I think at first, like on Sunday afternoon, I'm sitting there watching the United Burnley game in my parents' garden, and then the news breaks at half time of the United Burnley game.
Yeah.
That there's going to be a big announcement on Sunday evening. Now, when people do stuff like that, you know that, like, on a Sunday, you know it's big news.
Yeah.
And the clubs are doing it out of Monday. They knew that UEFA are going to be announcing the new structure of the Champions League. Unpopular opinion, but I quite like the idea and think they should give it a go. And if it doesn't work out, we go back to group stages, like how they had the 2 group stages for, when was it, for 2 or 3 years? You had like a phase 1 and a phase 2, and then they scrapped it because they didn't like it. And it's like, yeah, at least they tried to, like, not have that, like, monogamy of things being the same. So yeah, I quite like the idea of the Swiss model, and think, yeah, give it a shout. But so the Super League people, they've waited. They've been obviously sitting on this for a while, and they've waited till the day before UEFA are going to make this announcement to break this themselves. But yeah, the first flag was the fact it was at half time of the United Burnley game. So then Sunday evening, the news comes out and of the plans. There was this statement, and I think I'm sitting there, I'm reading the statement, and then first name you see fucking Florentino Perez, like that
Mhm.
dickhead from Madrid, and like the guy is like he's 74, 75 years old. He's a businessman, and like if you look at the financial state of Madrid at the moment, like you can understand why he's backing it, becoming like this figurehead of it, because his club are in trouble. Like they they could potentially be non-existent, if they're not careful. Like you can argue that yeah they've got their government backing and stuff, as well. So you see his name on it, and then uh, you see uh, the Italian guy on it. But then, uh, so like Perez, yeah, I think, oh, he's a dick. Next guy, like, oh, I've never heard of you. Just go back to your hole. Um, like your whole league's in trouble, with the amount of money they spend. But then you see the name Joel Glazer.
And
Um,
then you're like, shit.
yeah. Now, as Gary Neville said on Monday Night Football, like this guy, he does not. The only time he touches Man United really is if it's something really big and important, and like you never, like you don't see the guy at games anymore, um, like nothing. And he he's put his name on this, and this guy means business, like proper business. And like as Gary Neville said, he does not put his name on anything unless he's completely confident about it, and he'll have like the best legal teams in the world, um, working on his side to make sure it all goes through, um, without a hitch. Um, which I say with the commas because obviously they might not have envisaged the backlash that it's getting, from the fans. But yeah, that came out, and at that point, my first thoughts were I felt betrayed. Um, the the club that, um, I love, that my grandfather loved, um, it it's turned its back on the fans. Now, I think it took a bit of time and a bit of working out, and then at some point yesterday evening, I realised I don't feel betrayed at the club. It's not the club that's betrayed me; it's the owners. And
Yeah,
I think,
that's the key thing.
I think what I have to keep telling myself is the owners don't own that
Give a
history.
shit.
They don't own that history of the club. They they don't own 58 in Munich. They don't own, the Busby Babes. They don't own the 68 European Triumph. They don't own the like 28 years or whatever, however long it was that we didn't win a top division title. Um, they don't own that, uh, like the Fergie's success. That's the club and the players that
Mhm.
played for the club and the people that worked at the club. Um, like the Glazers, there, and I mean, you can match this with, um, the Fenway Sports Group with, Joe Lewis and Daniel Levy, um, with, Sheikh Mansour and Abramovich. Like they don't own the history of their clubs. That history belongs to the fans,
Yep.
and I think it took some time to not to turn that betrayal into an anger focused solely on the Glazers, because like I know that if the fans work together and like work hard, and we saw it with Gillett and Hicks. When was it? 2007 with Liverpool, 2008. The Liverpool fans ran them out of the city. Like they got them out of their club. Um, and they I mean they joked last night with Carragher on Monday Night Football, like, yeah, but then you ended up with Fenway Sports, and look where you are now.
Now,
Um,
yeah,
but I mean, these people, they don't care about football. They just care about their bank balances. And when you see the amount of money that is being bandied about, and there's even like reports of there being wage caps um, on the teams, so they can only spend a X amount of money on wages, makes the owners even more money. Because if it did take off, then the players aren't being rewarded for like
yeah,
the amount of money they're bringing into the
it's
clubs.
going into the owners' pockets.
Yeah, because the players that like Paul Pogba sells 50 million shirts or 100 million shirts, he's only getting X amount of money. It doesn't matter. Whilst fucking Joel Glazer's sitting there, just, yeah, thank you very much. And like I can see wage caps coming into it. Like we sit there and joke about, and I mean you get people like, it's generally older people, and they say, "Oh, why don't they cap the wages?" So this is why. This is why the wages aren't capped in the Premier League, because it would just invite these um, people over that have no interest in um, sporting prowess. It is all about how much money can they get in their bank account. But I mean, I mean, there's reports that have come through since we started recording that Chelsea are going to be pulling out. City um, have said that they don't wish to be part of the European Super League anymore. And I think this is positive, but they are not the ones that need the money.
That's not official though, right? The City one.
City, it's being reported by Sky Sports now as as we speak.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't think for them it doesn't matter. Abramovich has fucking half the oil in the world. Sheikh Mansour has half the oil. Like, these people, they fucking bathe in money. Like, they don't give a flying fuck about money. And for them, the money that's being offered to them is a drop in the ocean, compared to, like, they'd rather not have the hassle of it all and be playing in the Premier League and be playing in the Champions League, and there you go. Like, Sheikh Mansour has been promising Man City fans the Champions League. You fucking pull him out of it before they've even won
Even
the fucking
start.
thing.
Yeah.
Like, they're on the verge of, like, they've got their best chance they've had in years to win the thing. They could be kicked out before the semi-finals start.
That's what I found funny, is they could be kicked out of from the semi-finals.
Um, they don't need it, but the problem is the 3 Italian clubs, the 2 Spanish clubs. They need the Premier League clubs there, because they don't have Serie A doesn't have the following that it had 20 to 30 years ago, when we all used to sit there and watch it on Channel 4 on a Sunday afternoon. Like, you'd sit and watch Football Italia, wouldn't you? And like La Liga, we've seen that Real Madrid, Barcelona, they're in so much debt. Like, Real Madrid is like £1 billion of debt. Like, how do you possibly do that to yourself? I know we're in we've been in a pandemic and football clubs are suffering, but like, you do things differently to help yourself as a business. And like we've seen clubs all over this country struggling, but they're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. They've managed to pull through that, like that solidarity. Like the Premier League have given a lot of money to the lower leagues to help them through this crisis. Like the lower league clubs might argue that it's not enough, but the Premier League did do
Done
it.
what they can.
Yeah, but whilst also trying to secure themselves. But they're the ones in trouble. The clubs in Italy and Spain. United don't need it. Liverpool don't need it. Like as clubs, but the owners are just greedy. And yeah, the likes of the Glazers, FSG, Joe Lewis and Daniel Levy, and Stan Kroenke, they're leeches. Like they will leech those clubs to death if they had to. And like what Gary Neville said last night about the stadium, like Old Trafford. Now, when was it? Last year, year before last in December. Me and my dad. Now, my dad's a Spurs fan. He's a member, and so I'll go to him with games. We went and watched Spurs on on one week. Then the following week, we went up to Old Trafford to watch United v Villa, and the difference, like you don't realise it until you're in one ground 1 minute and then you're in another ground the next minute. The difference in it. My dad said, like, he was a United fan, and when the Glazers took over,
Mate, just to give you some breaking news, Ed Woodward has resigned from Manchester United.
has he really?
Yeah.
Has he really?
Yeah. Go on Twitter and type in Ed Woodward.
This could be absolutely incredible.
Yeah, he has. And Samuel Lockhurst has reported it as well, and obviously he's a good source.
Oh,
What does that mean now? I don't know if you want to edit this out.
we're not editing it out. I think this is like the most real you'll ever
What
see.
does that mean for United with Ed Woodward having resigned?
I think it's
Is he a good figure within? Is he like highly regarded? Is he people hate him? What kind of when I said that to you, what kind of reaction did that give? Was that a good reaction or a bad reaction?
that it was a good reaction. Ed Woodward, as a businessman, has done great things for the club now, like managing to keep all the sponsors on side and all of that. But as a football man, like having that guy in charge of the transfers we've made over the last few years, like look at some of the money we spent in the last few years on the players that we spent it on, and then to have nothing to show for it apart from a Europa League and an FA Cup and a League Cup. And then other things like Harry Maguire. Like we were saying we wanted to pay 60 million. Leicester was saying they wanted us to pay 70. And it just back and forth. And then we ended up paying Leicester what they wanted anyway. And the same thing happened with Sancho last summer. And it was all down to Ed Woodward just not being able to negotiate as a football man. Just didn't know. And we've seen over, especially in the last 3 or 4 years, like during the Mourinho era, fans weren't singing for Mourinho's head. Fans were singing, praising Mourinho, trying to get behind him, get behind the team. They were singing for Ed Woodward's head and for the Glazers' head. I think that news is like the best news I've had this week, and it almost now feels like we said at the start of this pod that
Well,
this
in
story is
celebration,
just
in
moved so
celebration,
quickly.
I've sparked up a fag for you. So,
I mean, this story is just constantly moving and moving. It's been so quick, and I said before we started recording, I haven't been able to. I've been sitting and working, and I've had Sky Sports News on all day for the last 2
well,
days.
since we've recorded, Chelsea have backed out, Man City have backed out, and now Ed Woodward has resigned.
I think it'll be. I mean, Ed Woodward has resigned, but is that a signal that United are going to pull out of it? If United pull out of it, it's done. It's over.
Yeah, yeah.
Like they have people will argue with this, but United are the biggest commercial asset in world football.
I
They are
agree.
the biggest club in the world. Off the
I prefer
pitch,
commercial asset.
commercial asset. Like off the pitch at the moment. That 10 years ago, we were the biggest club, full stop.
Yeah.
In the world. Now, if this is a sign that Joel Glazer's having second thoughts, this could be huge for. This could be our Gillett and Hicks moment that Liverpool had 14, 15 years ago, because it could be that moment that, tomorrow morning, I'll wake up and Man United is for sale, and and someone will buy it. Someone will have the money, but knowing my luck, it'll be someone else that doesn't deserve it. But it's a positive move. I can't believe it, and the fact that we've sat here and it's happened whilst we're recording this. I had to restrain myself from dancing around the room.
Yeah.
That's how I
Do you
feel
think
right
other
now.
United fans will be as pleased as you, or do you think you're one of the only? Is it kind of everyone has different views on it, or?
I think the majority of United fans, like Woodward, yeah, he's done a good job as a businessman. Like with the sponsorship that we've got, he's kept that money coming in, so we could afford these players to come in. He's done that side good, but there are a lot of people out there that can do that job.
Yeah.
There's lots of people that can negotiate business deals with potential sponsors, especially when you're talking about Man United. Like, what do you have to negotiate? Seriously, the sponsor's going to want their name on the shirt, on the billboards around the ground. There's nothing to negotiate, and the sponsor's going to pay as much money as they can afford on that sponsorship. There's no negotiating it. But yeah, the football side, my God, we saw steps towards it like a month ago or 6 weeks ago when Fletcher and Darren Fletcher was made the director of football, and there was the new guy brought in as the in another role, and there was these moves. But that, I mean, now looking back at it, that could have been to free up Woodward to take on this Super League project. In all honesty,
Do you think? Who is it that? So who's behind the ESL? Who's backing this? Who's giving the money?
JP Morgan. So it's one of the biggest banks in the world.
Okay. Do you think?
So
And
they're
I'm
the ones
playing devil's advocate here, really devil's advocate, and it's a massive conspiracy theory. Right, listen to this. Do you think that they got them to sign this contract, this supposed 25-year contract or whatever it is, all these clubs? They knew all along that they were potentially going to get this backlash and might be pulling out, and it was never going to start, but now they've got an opportunity to sue the clubs for pulling out and breaking their contract as a money-making scheme. It's a massive conspiracy theory, but I'm just putting it out there.
Could be. If they want to do that, good luck to them.
Is it, and in terms of that's the reason why they got them to sign 25-year contracts or whatever contracts that they've got them to sign, because they knew that this could potentially happen, and with this potentially happening, they can at least make some money out of it.
Possibly, but that could be why fucking Woodward's been sacked. Could be his fucking signature on the contract for United.
Yeah.
Like he could put his, and by him being sacked, the rest of United go, well, we didn't sign that.
Yeah.
I doubt that's the case. I think it is Joel Glazer's signature on that contract. But I don't know. Hopefully, the developments in the last hour or so, or 45 minutes or so that we've been recording, that like so much constantly, this news is moving, and maybe by game week 32, it'll just be a meme, and something to, I think, like people have compared it to when the Premier League broke free, and the arguments that happened around that time about Sky killing football, etc. It's like, well, everyone bought into that, but it's still competitive, isn't it? There's relegation, there's promotion. Like it's not the fact that Sheffield United finished bottom, but next season they're okay. They can they can still play in the Premier League. It's not that.
Mhm.
This is what the Super League would be like. Fucking Arsenal could finish bottom every year, and they'd still be sitting there because they were a founder club. And the Premier League was never that back in 1991 when it was formed. It was always just, it was a new branding for the top level of football in this country. And yes, they do have a lot of power. Those 20 clubs at the top, of which, this big six have pulled their weight a bit. But I think in the next months, years, we're going to see. I think there'll be a lot of reform over how football clubs are run. Like there's been a lot of talk comparing how things are done in Germany with the 50+1 scheme, so that no owner can own more than 50% of a club.
It's 49, isn't it?
Yeah, and the people own 50+1%. So the fans and the communities of those clubs, they own the majority share in the club, and they can decide on stuff like joining a European Super League. And this is why there aren't any German teams in the thing. You haven't got the best team in Europe in the Super League. The European champions turned it down because their owners, the fans, didn't want to be part of it. And I think people said, "Oh, but we're past that. But how do we get rid of these owners?" I think the government and the league will do everything they can to get rid of these majority share businessmen that own these clubs, and do everything they can to give it back to the people that the game belongs to. At the end of the day, like these businessmen, yeah, they turn up to games for their fucking free champagne and their prawns on toast and whatever. But like the weather's shit, they sit inside on their fucking leather couches and still watch it on the TV. I've been in one of those directors' boxes at Old Trafford. Fucking huge widescreen TV, nice leather sofa, bar at the back, buffet table, all of that. And you can sit there and watch the game and not have to worry about your seat. And yeah, they're not the ones that in the pissing rain sitting outside and cheering on their team still, are they? It doesn't belong to them. It belongs to the fans.
You're right.
Yep. I thought we'll go on to what you want to say.
No. I'll let you go on. Have you got anything else to say on it?
I think we're going to see a lot more of this over the coming days.
What is the main reason why you're against it? Because obviously you said a lot of reasons that kind of the history, etc., and all of that. But why are you against it? Why would you not be? And this is not me saying it's the right. I'm just playing devil's advocate and trying to get your understanding. Why don't you want Man United being in this Super League as opposed to both? So the Premier League have apparently said that they're not going to be kicking anyone out of the Premier League, right? They're going to be staying in the Premier League. So there's been differing reports. So some have said, oh, they can't be in both. Some have said that they can. Let's go on either. So let's say they can be in the Premier League and it's replacing the Champions League, right? If that was the case, why would you or would you not be happy? On the basis that you're still in the Premier League and there is this Super League.
So 70 years ago, Matt Busby fought really hard to be in the European Cup and to lead, and like this could be echoed by Spurs fans. Like Man United and Spurs, they were trailblazers in European competition. They were leading. Like Spurs were the first to win. What cup did they win? Did they win like the Cup Winners' Cup, first English club? But yeah, these clubs were trailblazers, and back in the 50s, despite what the English FA wanted, Matt Busby led Man United into the European Cup and said, "Look, don't worry." Like, and this is back when you were travelling to play in Madrid. Like it took 2 days to get there and back, and then they'd still fulfil their fixtures on a 3 o'clock on a Saturday. Like they said, look, we're going to go and do this. We're going to fulfil our fixtures. And the FA went, right, well, if you can't fulfil your fixtures, we'll dock your points. Like if you're not there, like if you don't have a team at 3 o'clock on a Saturday, we'll dock your points. Matt Busby went, yeah, okay, we'll do that. And then in 1958, Munich happened. And that team that were trailblazing their way in the European Cup and probably would have won the European Cup that year, was decimated. And I think there's a duty with the history of that club, of Man United, and how they fought back, and then 10 years later won the European Cup, and the emotion of it all, and of what Matt Busby did for the club, and then to then 70 years later go, well, we've got our own trophy, we don't care about that one. That big trophy there, people literally died to win it, for Man United, and that is what infuses me so much, about the whole situation. And then the next part is the no competition of it. Like, I was really lucky for, I started like seriously following them like, around 94, 95. Not a great year to be a United fan. We got pipped in the league, lost the FA Cup final. But I remember, like, and I didn't really have feelings about it back then. You were just like, oh, it's just a football game. I was like 8 years old. It's just a football game. Then I was really lucky to experience over the next 15 years one of the most dominant teams in English football, who were brilliant to watch at times, awful to watch at other times. Like in that time between sort of around 03, 04, we just became a bit boring. And then in the last 10 years, we haven't, the success hasn't been there. Now, for all those highs and successes that have been amazing, I would not swap anything in the world for the feelings you get from those lows as well, because that's what makes the highs so good.
Yeah.
Because
that's fair.
You can't, and this is where I think I feel for like my friends that are Liverpool fans. Like, a lot of them never seen Liverpool win the league in their lifetime, or can't remember seeing them win the league in their lifetime. And last year they experienced that, and then especially in the last few years where they came so close and fell at last, and they've had that hurt. And 4 years ago they had their like one hand on the title, and then it got snatched away from them at the last minute, and then to have that jubilation of then going and winning the league, last year, like, you're not going to feel that, like if these 6 clubs are still in the Premier League, like, they're just going to have their own monopoly of the league
because of the money that they're going to get from being in the
Like,
Super League.
We're not talking about, like, just for being in it. Every season they're going to get like 1.5 times what you'd get for winning the Champions League.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Like, that's every season. Now this is, I mean, obviously, like, we're saying this now, and even more breaking news: the Juventus chairman has resigned. So it does look like it is just slowly falling apart.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. But I think it's good for us to continue this conversation, because one day it's going to happen again.
Yeah.
There'll be more clubs involved probably, but it'll happen again. Yeah, so the money involved, would just mean the Premier League, like, if these 6 clubs stayed there, there'd be it'd just be a 6-horse race every year. You wouldn't have Leicester winning the league was a miracle in the first place. It would be unthinkable, like literally but like like with Leicester, you now know it can happen. It could happen again one day, but if these clubs have that sort of money to spend every year, it'd be unthinkable for someone like Leicester, for someone like West Ham to be sitting
So
where
more
they are
breaking
now.
news. More breaking news. So this is from Stan Collymore. I don't know what weight this holds or what club it is. He says, breaking, I've been told that one club owner may put their club up for sale within days. Such is a dismay within the club from top. Don't know what that means.
I fucking hope it's the Glazers. I truly, truly hope it's the Glazers. It'd be unbelievable if it is. But yes, so these teams that have this monopoly, and you wouldn't have those highs. Well, you'd have the highs, but you wouldn't have those lows. There won't be those low moments, or there will be, but there'll be low moments of losing to another Big Six team. Like you wouldn't, in theory, it would be very hard for a team like Burnley, teams like Villa, Everton, West Ham to compete with these guys because they'll have all the best players in the world playing for them. Like there's no doubt in my mind that players like Erling Haaland, Kylian Mbappe, Neymar, they're not going to say, "Oh, I'll play in the Champions League and play against the second string sides from Spain, Italy, and England. I want to play against the top sides."
Mm-hmm.
And with that, they'll be getting the high end of the wage cap as well. And these players, they'll all end up playing for these clubs, and the monopoly of it all. And like you see it in Spain already. Like in La Liga, those three clubs, Real, Barca, and Atletico, they dominate that league. Like you've got like the likes of Valencia, Sevilla, Sociedad that are like borderline and stuff, and they'll just dominate. Like it won't be any change in the Liga. They may as well just create a second trophy for the rest of the league.
So now let's spin it on its head. What if all of the so the Premier League, the La Liga, all of them say, right, if you're in this European Super League, you're not going to be able to be in our league. Then what happens? The Premier League wouldn't exist, I don't think. Well, it would exist, but not not in its current form because they're not going to be getting Sky, BT. All of these are not going to be paying the same amount of money to these Premier League clubs to televise their games. They're going to be saying, well, the top six clubs, their fans make up the most of in the country in terms of in the Premier League, right? And they pay Sky, BT, etc. to watch their games every year. And if you're a United fan or a Tottenham fan and you're paying for Sky's subscription because you want to watch Man United, and now Man United are not in the Premier League, therefore you don't want to watch Sky Sports anymore, you're going to cancel your subscription. So therefore, Sky aren't going to be getting as much money, so they're not going to be paying the Premiership as much money. And obviously the clubs are not going to be getting as much money. So it creates a big problem.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether the Premier League would follow through with the threats
No, I don't
because
think they will.
because of this
Because they
reason.
know the impact. Yeah, I don't think they will.
But there can be rules introduced that limit. Now, we know for a fact now that, like, with Brexit, our government is able to create laws at will. We've seen it in other instances over the last few weeks. But in particular, what has been said today is about work permits. Now, if you look at Man City, Man United, Spurs, Chelsea, Arsenal, how many of their starting 11 or their best 11 are not homegrown players? Like maximum,
A lot of them.
yeah, like there's probably maximum of 3. I think United probably have 3, maybe 4. Man City got what, 2, 3? Stones, Sterling, Foden.
Yeah.
Chelsea 2, 3. And imagine these them not being able to, like, or being limited. Like, they probably would still keep, say, right, you can have 3 foreign players for your squad, but that's it. Now, I wouldn't put it past the government doing that to try and create a security around it. It would probably be great for England with the top homegrown players all being able to play constantly. But would we get the best coaches in the world wanting to come to the Premier League? Probably not. Would Guardiola want to come here and just coach a team of English players with Kevin De Bruyne in the middle of them? Or probably not. Would Thomas Tuchel want to do that at Chelsea? Probably not. So you won't get the best coaches, which then in turn I think then becomes worse for the game. So even that, the work permit thing, could be a very negative thing to do. Then there's wage capping, but then again, the owners then start making more money out of it. There's all of these different things. And then the last thing I read was the possibility of a tax on it, which ends up so that these clubs get taxed more on these earnings, because these earnings are from overseas, and that money just gets redistributed to the Football League anyway, and back into the pyramid anyway. But I think either way, yeah, the Premier League isn't the Premier League without these clubs.
I'll give you my opinion on it. So I think I would not be happy if they stayed in the Premier League. So if they created this European Super League and they stayed in the Premier League, I would not be happy. And I think mainly, and this is me talking as a West Ham fan, mainly because we would never be able to compete. As it is at the moment, it's very difficult, and we're in a fortunate position that we're, West Ham currently, as we talk, are 4th in the league and currently in qualification for the Champions League. That's never going to happen if they're going to be getting millions and millions of pounds, where they're able to buy the best players in the world, even more so than now, and we're not. So that's the first thing. I would then say, if they are going to be going in this European Super League, then they shouldn't be in the Premier League. It will therefore mean that it's not as attractive. The Premier League isn't as attractive, and we're not going to be making as much money. That's fair enough. But we would have more of an opportunity to win the league. You know, West Ham would be one of the favourites with Leicester, with, I don't know, Everton. And would it mean the same? Yeah, it would. Because if they want to fuck off and go to a different league, then that's up to them. We have to just deal with what we've got. It's still the Premier League, but it's going to have to be a completely reformatted, you know, change. I don't know what they would change. It hasn't affected me as much as you. And I think the main reason for that is because you're a United fan, the thoughts and the prospect of now not being in a league that, an English league that you were essentially brought up in, is a massive change. Yes, we wouldn't be facing the likes of Spurs or Arsenal or United and all these, but we're still in the league. So it wouldn't make as much of a difference to me as it would to you. I wouldn't be having to travel to, you know, Spain every week to watch my club, or wherever,
That
Italy and all these
that would probably
places.
be
That's the thing.
in the Super League. That would probably be considered a home fixture, only travelling
Yeah.
to Spain, because
Well, this is
there's been
another part of it, right? Is
talk
that
of
they
them
all want to do
touring.
it all in America or something.
Yeah, there's been talk of them touring the globe. Like, we've seen how the Asian market goes crazy for Premier League football.
Yeah.
They could end up like going over there and playing half their games a season.
So
Like,
that's something as a season ticket holder that would affect me a lot, to be able to kind of cope with.
our reserves would end up
Overall,
playing more at Old Trafford than the first team,
yeah.
because just to
Overall,
get the ticket over.
I obviously am not in favour of it. I think there's nothing more than greed out of this. Um, and I'm not in favour of the Super League, but that's mainly from a point of view of, I like the competitive nature of the league that we're in, and my club will suffer because we won't be getting as much money. Therefore, I won't be seeing as good as the players. You know, whilst we don't get the best amazing players in the world, if these rich clubs
I don't know. You've got
are now able to turn around and say to my best player, Declan Rice, right, we're gonna pay West Ham, we'll pay you 200 million, and Rice, we're gonna pay you 500 grand a week. What's he gonna say? He can't say no. West Ham can't say no, and they're going to be able to do that. They're going to be able to spot the best players in these clubs
well,
and
yeah,
go, we'll give you 10 times the amount that you're getting.
every other club in the country will become their own personal academy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, they'll be scouting all the games. They'll pick up every single player. They'll sign everyone they can, and they'll just loan them back to get some experience. They'll loan them back to whoever to get some experience. Then the good ones, oh yeah, you're coming with us now. That's all it'll be.
Yeah.
Like, and people will go, oh no, it won't be like that. I wouldn't put it past some of these clubs of
No, I
like
agree.
what they'd do. Like, they'd completely monopolize it, because to compete in this league and take home that huge paycheck at the end, yeah, they'll want as many of the best players as possible, and they'll want them before anyone else can get them. So, like, A, they'll be able to spend all of this money, and B, yeah, they'll, like, we see it already, but on a smaller scale, like clubs that they spot these players and they'll loan them abroad, and like a lot of them, yeah, end up staying at the club they're at, and very few actually make it into the Premier League. But you'll see it on such a huge scale, because the clubs will be able to afford to have fucking hundreds of players on their wage bills, um, to be able to like do it. Yeah, I mean, it. Thankfully, it does look like I mean, it like it's being nipped in the bud, and it's producing huge change. Like if this is true that a Premier League club is going to be put up for sale, like it's there's it's one of two clubs, and it's those big two. It's either Liverpool or United, and I think it'll be United because there's been rumours that the Glazers have been looking away anyway, and there was rumours last year in the summer of an offer from it's one of the Arab nations, and you can almost definitely see that happening. If not United, then it's going to be Liverpool, because the owners of those two clubs will go, oh well, we'll find something else to make money in then. And like one of them, they both own two huge brands in American football. Like one of them's the world champion. Like, I mean, yeah, the Glazers own my American football team as well, and yeah, they're the world champions. But yeah, nobody wants like this European Super League, and then the winners of it to be claiming they're the European champions, whilst the
Ha-
European
have
Cup
they said
holders.
who the other 5 places go to?
I believe it will be on league. It would be on
Right.
league merit, but then these other 5 places. So if say in the league as it stands now, these other 5 places would be, who would they be? Villa, Leicester, West Ham,
What they would go in? So it's going to be from the
Everton.
UK.
Oh no, I think. Oh no, would they be champions of other league? But so these clubs, but then they've earned the right to be in the Champions League,
Yeah.
and they'll be given that choice as well. It's either Champions League or Super League. Which do you want to
Yeah.
play in?
I guess they haven't confirmed yet, right? With those 5 clubs,
No,
where they'll
I'd
come from.
imagine it would be an extra team from Italy, an extra team from Spain, a couple of extra teams from England, and then one other team from somewhere random, which they probably in before would have hoped it would have been Germany or France, but both of
Yeah.
their FAs have come out and opposed it. I mean, PSG, I'm shocked. Out of
Yeah.
all through this, that was probably the most shocking thing, is that PSG did not have their hands in this basket, um,
They
which
don't need the money.
they don't need the money, but I think it should be applauded at the end of the day. Like we've spoken about Bayern and Dortmund, but yeah, PSG could have easily bought into this idea as well, but they haven't. Um, but yeah, fingers crossed. The worst 2 days of my following Man United as a football fan, I like I can't remember feeling this the way that I have in the last 2 days ever over football. um, just that the anger and that betrayal, and it felt like the worst breakup ever.
Mm.
um, and yeah, I just hopefully seeing the, the back of Ed Woodward, and with the reports that are constantly coming through from elsewhere, that yeah, this is going to be put under the table for a while. And I mean, whilst that, if it gets put,
I don't think it's going to happen, mate.
oh
I've said
no,
that from the beginning. As soon as announced,
I mean,
as soon as it was first announced, it was like I was like, it's not going to happen. This is them trying to use it as a bargaining
I
chip.
mean, 15, 20 years ago, the idea was muted, wasn't it? There was talk of this Super League, where you have all of the biggest clubs in Europe all playing in a league with each other. Not the Champions League; it would be a proper league, and there was talk of this. And it kind of got put to bed very quickly. And then you had the Atlantic League with Rangers and Celtic. They wanted to create something that they could be part of, and that got put to bed. And I think unless there's reform on how English clubs are run, it will happen again in another 10, 15, 20 years. Owners will become greedy again, and they'll go, how can we get a bigger slice of the pie? And it's going to happen. And I think if there's some reform in this country where parts of the club are given back to the fans, and the fans get their say, because in this situation they didn't have a single chance to get their say until after it was announced, then we can start looking at positive steps into the future to get the game that we all love, to improve it, to create more money at grassroots levels, and to build the game up again. Because this disappointment, it would have lost so much trust in a lot of people. People that aren't fans of clubs necessarily, and more neutrals, but enjoy the game of football and will watch it if it's on the TV and stuff like that. People like that are the ones that turn around and go, they're constantly saying, oh, but the money and all of this. The last 48 hours, 72 hours has just backed up everything they've ever said that's negative about the game. We need to start helping people forget the negatives and start remembering the positives that football's brought, especially over the last 12 months, with how it's helped people and helped communities throughout this global crisis we've been in.
Indeed. Well, mate, I think you've done a good job there. You spoke for most of that. I think you're more passionate about it, so I think it's only right that you do most of the talking on it. Before we wrap up, is there anything else that you want to add?
No. Fingers crossed. This is the last time we ever need to speak about the European Super League on a podcast. I expect we'll probably end up touching on it. Hopefully, just recapping how it all ended on the live stream on Thursday night when we lock in. But yeah, it looks like there's a lot of positive moves being made as we speak and as we record. So fingers crossed.
Well, Thursday we are going to be live streaming, as I said, at around 10:30, and we'll be discussing mainly FPL stuff, maybe a little bit about European Super League, depending on how the news goes. So thanks for tuning in. All your feedback is really important to us. You can find us on a number of podcasts, including Spotify, Google Podcasts, and on Twitter, FPL_Happy Hour, and our YouTube channel is FPL Happy Hour. Please like, subscribe, and share, and all your retweets are appreciated. We will chat to you on Thursday. Have a good couple of days.
Cheers, guys. Good night.